The Korean War, that began in 1950, is technically ongoing because only an armistice was signed in 1953 rather than a peace treaty. American warmongers argue that the United States must spend $8 billion a year to keep 30,000 troops there at a dozen bases until the war ends. This is only because the United States refuses to even discuss an end to the war, because it will lose control of South Korea's military if American troops leave. In addition, part of the justification for the Pentagon's massive annual budget is to defend South Korea, and those who profit off the perpetual American presence spend millions of dollars to lobby American congressmen to keep their racket going. The South Korean military is 5 times stronger than the North Korean military, and there are no Russian or Chinese soldiers based in the north. South Korea has twice the population and 40 times the GDP of decrepit North Korea and has fortified its mountainous border. American troops are not needed there, but powerful interests protect the status quo. Withdrawing just half the American troops would save the United States over $3 billion a year and may allow a formal peace treaty to be signed. Former President Donald Trump openly talked about a Korean peace treaty and flew to Asia 3 times to personally meet with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. Trump was denounced as soft by Democrats, to include Joe Biden. The American national security establishment was angry and used their media outlets to denounce a peace treaty and mock Trump, who had foolishly appointed warmongering neocons like John Bolton to his national security team. Bolton worked behind the scenes to derail Trump's peace effort, although tensions were lessened. Those who profit from the billions of American taxpayer dollars wasted in Korea were pleased. They fund a strong political lobby in Washington, D.C. to preserve profits, evidenced by the recent article linked below entitled, 35 House Republicans are gravely concerned about formally ending the Korean War. In late 2021, former U.S. Ambassador to South Korea, Harry Harris, a retired 4-star American admiral, told a panel discussion in New York that the U.S., quote, must not relax sanctions or reduce joint military exercises just to get North Korea to come to the negotiating table. He then became director for a major military contractor, L3 Harris. Admiral Harris was never a real diplomat and never wants the Korean War to end, even though the U.S. military wastes billions of dollars each year to remain in Korea, and tensions could cause fighting to erupt over a minor incident along the DMZ. Hopefully, a future American president will seek a peace treaty to end this perpetual war. The first step is to stop senseless babble about North Korean nuclear weapons. Unless the United States agrees to eliminate its massive stockpile of nuclear weapons, it cannot demand that North Korea eliminate its few nukes. The United States already agreed to eliminate its nuclear weapons by signing the 1970 Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, yet kept thousands of nukes and is spending $1 trillion to build new ones. See the video link below. North Korea properly withdrew from this treaty and built several nuclear weapons after watching the United States ignore its promise to eliminate nuclear weapons, and then destroy Iraq and Libya after their leaders had agreed to halt plans for nuclear weapons. A reasonable demand would be that North Korea sign the United Nations Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty that the United States, Japan, Russia, China, and South Korea signed in 1996. This should be acceptable since North Korea has not conducted a test since 2017. If North Korea agrees to a nuclear test ban, the United States should agree to remove all economic sanctions. North Korea's main demand for signing a peace treaty is the withdrawal of all foreign forces from the Korean Peninsula. This is reasonable as there are no Russian or Chinese military forces in North Korea, and South Korea is far more powerful than the North. However, the American national security establishment will unite to destroy any president attempting to withdraw all American troops from Korea. The U.S. Army recently completed a massive $15 billion construction project to build a modern military city called Camp Humphreys, along with a new hospital. Peace threatens this investment. U.S. Army generals openly defy past agreements to withdraw American troops from the DMZ border region to lessen tensions. Camp Casey remains open with American combat troops just a few miles from the DMZ, despite a promise to South Korea to close it a decade ago. See the article linked below. The United States must close Camp Casey and adjacent Camp Hovey, as promised a decade ago, to kickstart peace treaty negotiations. Another North Korean objection are joint American-South Korean military exercises that are seen as threatening. The United States Air Force destroyed nearly every building in North Korea during the Korean War, so flights by American aircraft near the DMZ are seen as provocations. The U.S. Army sends troops up to the DMZ during military exercises and conducts live-fire training at the Rodriguez Multipurpose Live-Fire Complex near North Korea. The United States should agree to keep all American military aircraft, military equipment, and uniformed personnel at least 40 kilometers from North Korean borders. The United States should also remove half its troops from South Korea to save billions of dollars a year and free resources for operations elsewhere. Most American soldiers in Korea are not part of combat forces. A massive headquarters and base support element exists to accommodate large numbers of American troops arriving to help repel a North Korean invasion. However, the South Korean military is 5 times stronger than the North and has fortified its border to ensure an attack will fail. See the video link below, the mythical North Korean threat. The U.S. Army should close 3 unneeded logistical support bases, known as the Daegu Complex, in the center of South Korea. These exist to support the arrival of many thousands of American troops to help defend South Korea, which no longer needs such help. See the article linked below. The U.S. Air Force should withdraw most units from Osan Air Base, pictured here, that is very vulnerable to North Korean missile attacks, and move aircraft to other U.S. Air Force bases in Asia. See the article linked below for details. Osan can remain open as a U.S. Army airfield, with facilities used by any key units displaced from the 3 Daegu camps. The U.S. Army should downsize its massive headquarters complex, known as 8th Army Headquarters, that is a relic of the Cold War. The U.S. Army has more headquarters soldiers in Korea than combat troops. These troop withdrawals could be concessions made during peace negotiations or made unilaterally as a sign of good faith. These steps may not lead to a peace treaty, yet will benefit the United States. $3 billion a year would be saved by closing unneeded facilities and moving 24 aircraft and a few thousand personnel elsewhere in Asia where they can support operations anywhere. The people of South Korea, Japan, and the United States will applaud serious steps towards peace that may finally end the Korean War and bolster America's image in Asia.